So anyway, we got off on a really nice tangent there in the beginning, but I want to introduce you to everybody. You're Kevin. Can you tell us the name of your company and kind of what you do and what your story is, and the one of the main reasons why you love data so much?
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Kevin Burkle. I started an agency called Canby Online Incorporated. I was just like the corporation. I didn't brand it good. I'm not about branding. I'm about getting results.
Nice.
So I started out many years ago in like affiliate marketing. That was like my passion, SEO. And then, obviously stuff changed. I got into more e-commerce. I was in charge of marketing for two different e-commerce companies. And then, so there's a big need for like a different type of agency where you're not really looking to rapidly scale, where it's just more of a higher end type of feel, where you have a fewer amount of clients and just give them a higher level of service. And it was just kind of during that time, Facebook ads got really, it was like the beginnings of that. And I saw like the huge potential. So I kind of like went all in on that. And so right now, really all we really concentrate on is really Facebook ads management, building out like funnels if there needs to be a funnel. We can do some like web design, but really like the bread and butter is Facebook ads management. Because the truth is that's where people are. Everybody's glued to their phones. And when you think of Facebook, it's not just the app. It's Instagram, it's Messenger, plus they have the audience network, which is any other app out there that sells ads or any mobile versions of a news site that sells ads. Good chance a portion of their ad inventory gets filled through Facebook. So you're like literally able to follow people around the entire mobile web.
Yeah.
So, and with the mobile web, data is super amazing and efficient, but it's also at the same time super creepy what's out there.
Super creepy. That's a good way to put it.
I mean, it really is. I mean, I was just talking to a company that essentially like they're saying if you have any like weather apps on your phone and you have real-time alerts, good chance they're selling your data
to the local.
So if you walk into a store, you can put like a geofence around and target them and they know you're there.
Yeah. It's still scary when I've done one action earlier in the week and all of a sudden those ads pop up. I'm like, there's no digital trail of that. How did that happen?
It's creepy. I mean,
and even in being in data, like to me, it's not creepy because I guess there's elements of it that are creepy, but it's like even after Cambridge Analytica and everything, there are still things that are happening that are following us. And it's still the wild, wild west and things are being cracked down upon, which is going to hurt the marketing side. It's going to hurt and make marketers have to get a lot more creative, especially with the browsers starting to block a lot of data and tracking. That's going to affect a lot of stuff. So I'm curious, maybe a little bit advanced thing to jump into, but with this creepiness of data and what's going on, and as browsers and platforms are cutting down on the data that's shared with marketers, are you concerned at all?
I'm not really concerned because, it always goes back to the strategy. You'll always be able to find data for your target market. The data that's going on right now just makes it so much more precise.
Right.
Because, you can't sell a Ferrari to somebody who's making minimum wage.
Right.
And half the battle, especially with advertising, is finding the person that can like afford the Ferrari. So when you can find it, it's a lot easier to have your ad or your branding resonate to that person because it's on point. A lot of the crackdowns that are happening kind of on the browser level. So you think about it, there's no real crackdown going on right now of location data being shared. And Bing and Yahoo, from my understanding, they actually sell search history of what people are doing. Granted, they randomize it.
Right.
And then those people fall into those buckets where you can then remarket to them.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to cause people to get really creative on these kind of things. You're right. But when it comes to the browser part, that's starting to block all the travel, to be able to get attribution,
that's going to be harder.
UTMs, the attribution part, which is what a lot of our clients at Praxis want, and a lot of, I know, e-commerce companies are wanting to know where are my customers coming from, where are my best customers coming from, and what are those sources that are working and the ones that aren't. UTMs is one of our best assets for that. But as the browsers start cutting stuff, how is that going to affect really on the agency side what you're doing for your clients in Facebook ads?
And I think it's definitely going to be a huge difference because if you think of it, if everybody starts blocking it, all that's going to happen is obviously the UTM, the last click. And as you know, marketing is really as a whole.
Yeah.
And that's why you see Google, they have more of like a blended approach they recommend. AdRoll has a blended approach where it factors in first click, last click, view. I really am preaching more, especially my clients, is you have to have a really more like a holistic approach where,
Hmm.
let's say obviously Facebook generated a sale, but they also saw your banner ad following around. Basically, the point is you have to just saturate your market more than ever. Because it
Mm-hmm.
really comes down to who can spend the most money and still make money at the end of the day is going to win.
Yep. That is the person who's willing to spend the most to acquire the customer is going to win.
Yeah.
But okay, as an agency to agency, we deal with some other customers that have multiple agencies. When it comes to attribution, Facebook's going to say, or your Facebook agent is going to say, oh, we got that sale for you. And then the Google team over here is going to say, no, we got that sale for you. So the e-commerce customer, the client that we share, is saying, how do I know who to attribute that to? Who's going to be successful there? How do you guys deal with that when you have clients maybe in that position?
Yeah, that is the number one issue that we face pretty much every day, because obviously Facebook wants their attribution. Their standard is, I believe it's 28-day click and 1-day view.
Yep.
That's a big time frame.
Yep.
And obviously Google has something very, very similar, so they draw it out. And that's really that is the issue, regardless of what industry like a client is in. Issue you talk about is there. I've yet to really find a solution. Typically what we always do is we'll go by what Google Analytics is. We'll do a blended approach with their attribution model and kind of use that as the kind of like the, I don't know,
source of truth.
Last thing that kind of like decides it is that.
Yeah. We call it source of truth, and we deal with this all the time with other agencies. No, we haven't worked together before, but this is, it's like one of the number one problems. Companies doing at least 2 million a year, because they're already doing enough spend, and they need to know, wait a minute, I have so much going on here. And usually they have different agencies for each platform. Yeah. It's just kind of how we see them going. That's what they're doing. So we take that blended approach as well. This is about validation and really investigating inside of the data. Let's get as many data points as we can. So UTMs need to be set up. And those of you who don't know UTMs, that's urchin tracking mechanism. It's a free thing. Every single marketing effort needs to have a UTM code on it and tracked and logged correctly, so that we can have at least that source coming through. And if it's pulled all the way through into Google Analytics, then fantastic. That means every ad, every blog post, every social post, all of that. So that's going to be helpful. But then we also have the firing of the pixels. So Facebook's going to attribute their sales or their leads. And then we're going to have to look at, okay, well, let's say it's an e-commerce company with Shopify. Does that ad or is that sale with the email and the name and all that stuff tied to that UTM code? There's a lot of stuff we can do on the back end to get all these data points to verify that that's where that person came from. It's a lot of work, but it can be done as long as the tracking is set up the right way. And so that's one of the bigger problems is when people don't have the right tracking and they're just depending on Google, Facebook's 28-day, cycle. That's not enough time. You can't really do that. So it's a struggle, but I think the number one thing to fix that is get your tracking set up better.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I definitely always recommend doing UTM. Even one thing that I do a lot, especially with Facebook, is I change the attribution window, because you can change it depending on what niche the person's in. Sometimes we'll just do a 1-day click or a 7-day click. It really depends on what their typical buying cycle is. And the cool thing about that is that when you do make that change, it will actually factor in the past results in your ad account. So you can actually see what was actually a 1-day click, what was actually maybe just a view sale.
Oh, that's great. No, I didn't personally know that because I'm not the one in the back end. But for our listeners, anybody who's listening to this, can you kind of describe that a little bit more about what that setting is?
Yeah, so that's in the ad account settings. So if you go in your ad account, there'll be 3 lines. The top left, you click that. Then you go to the ad account settings page. And on that, they'll have an attribution that you can slide. The standard one, again, is a 28-day click and a 1-day view, which means Facebook will say, hey, I got you that if somebody clicked today, and let's say they bought 28 days later.
Right.
Facebook's saying, give it to me. Or if they just saw the ad in their newsfeed that day and purchased, Facebook says, hey, that was all me.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, most of the time I definitely turn back the view through, because especially on the Facebook platform, a view, it's really not going to be pushing somebody to buy. They really need to at least click.
Yeah, that makes sense. The even more difficult part is when you look at that attribution and the person's come in through a Facebook ad, got on your email list, opened a few emails, then and may even got on a call or whatever you're doing, and then finally, like on a Google ad, they purchased.
Exactly.
Who gets that sale? Who's the one you attribute it? If it's last click, it's Google. But that whole journey, it's something to take into consideration. If the tracking is all set up right there, you can see that journey. That's
Absolutely.
a really nice journey of the client journey, what it took. But all those things, like you said earlier, saturate them. As many touch points as possible, audio, visual, webinar, whatever it may be, is getting in front of them as many times as possible is really what's going to ultimately work. But then for us, it's about getting really specific. Is your advertising working or not? And where do you need to double down or stop advertising on platforms that just aren't converting for you?
Absolutely. I mean, I was previously like really because obviously my background's like direct response marketing. I was previously like really against branding, and I've really come around like a complete 180. And probably the past year, and then I saw Adidas, they came out with something where they pivoted almost exclusively for their e-com side to direct response.
Really?
And they like really cut back on branding, and they found out that actually what was driving their sales was actually the branding.
Really?
Which
as
makes
opposed
sense.
to direct response. Well, yeah, that makes sense.
Because like obviously I saw with Nike, they pulled out of Amazon, and obviously everybody's like, oh, why would they do that? Nike go outside and ask one person, have you ever heard of Nike? You'll probably never find somebody who said no.
Right.
They have the branding.
Yeah.
And then going on Amazon is just giving Amazon data.
Yeah. Doesn't make sense.
Well, why do it? Granted, their e-commerce site is not the best. They definitely need to invest in it, but why give Amazon any data at all? Because they're going to come out one day with some white label shoe of some kind.
Exactly. No, you're right. Yeah. So some of those larger companies are getting smarter about where they're sharing their data. And that just happened recently, right? Nike. It was this month, I think.
Yeah, it was just the other day that they pulled out. Because I know they went in initially to like stop the counterfeits.
Yep.
Because that's a huge problem on there. I mean, I bought a toy for one of my kids, like a Toy Story toy, and I'm almost positive it was counterfeit. Because you could see on the bottom, like the ones that are like legit will say like a Disney store, and this one didn't.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It is insane. It is a valid concern for e-commerce companies. We just think, it may be a good thing to have to get started, but we really think going to e-commerce side is just, you own your data, you own your customers, you own the journey. So yeah, that's an interesting conversation. I want to get a little bit specific on the agency side on data for those who either work with agencies or maybe are looking at, hey, we're getting to the size where we want to hire an agency, go outside of our internal processes. What are the top 1 to 3 or maybe 5 metrics that are most important to track when it comes to Facebook advertising? What do you guys report on? What do you guys really emphasize?
Well, I think the number one thing that we emphasize above all else is that the client needs to own their data. They need to own their ad account and the pixel. There's many agencies out there that will say, hey, you got to run your ads in my ad account with my pixel. And what you're doing right there is setting something up that could happen down the road that could be really bad. Where, I mean, you think about it. If somebody came to you and said, hey, I have all your competitors' traffic. Do you want it? Mm-hmm. 9 times out of 10, you probably say, yeah, I want it. When you don't own that data, I'm not saying the agency will do it, but you're opening that potential of happening. And the data is very, very important. And really, many people I talk to just don't realize the value in it. Because the way the pixel works with Facebook, you put it on your site, they then matches it up to a active Facebook user that they have in their database. And then you could build lookalikes from that. You could share that into other ad accounts. So it's really important that you own that data and you make sure it's set up correctly and tracking correctly. Because the worst thing that you can ever have is running a campaign and not actually having accurate data. So something I see a lot is where like the pixel's not set up correctly. It's not firing correctly. And Facebook has a tool called the Facebook Pixel Helper. It's a Chrome extension. I really recommend if you're thinking about running Facebook ads, install that, go through your entire funnel and make sure it's firing correctly. You'll see a green check mark. And essentially what that is, that's validating that Facebook is able to get that data back, match it correctly. So obviously from there, that's like the most important thing. But the things that we really, I would say, track and really decide if it's a successful campaign is really, what is our objective? Is it to make sales, get leads, get branding? Whatever that is, that's the most important thing. So typically 9 times out of 10, it's either getting sales on the e-commerce side. So we're tracking purchases and then the return on ad spend, or lead generation. Let's say B2B or B2C, and they want leads. So we're looking obviously at the cost per lead, but then also when it's lead like that, what does it actually cost to get a customer from that lead? Because that's a very, very important thing to consider. So what you're able to do with the Facebook Pixel is, let's say obviously you get a lead, but you have a funnel that they have to go through and they have to sign a contract of some kind. So if you're able to have that contract, when it gets signed, go to a certain page, like an onboarding page. On that onboarding page, you can load the pixel and load a specific event. And then you could see, hey, okay, we got 100 leads, 5 of them purchased, and it actually cost us $500 to get a sale. And that sale's worth, let's say, $5,000 for you, to you. So it's like, whoa, you actually got a return. So my biggest thing is making sure you track those numbers.
That's really awesome. And I think that's this trick, this little hack you just talked about, is more for like maybe service companies, agencies, anybody else that has a longer buying journey than just an e-commerce. Oh, I want this, add to cart and buy, right? Yeah. Because they're doing that anyway in the process, is putting a pixel on there. So what you're saying is, so I can repeat this, is putting a Facebook pixel that is titled that final sale or whatever, is a thing to do on your thank you page after, like, you do a digital signing contract and they pay the invoice or whatever it is. Just send them to that page so that Facebook can even acquire it. Right?
Correct.
If it came from Facebook, like having a Facebook funnel. So you would really have to have, I guess, one Facebook funnel. Like if it was our company, we send them to a lead gen to a Calendly like booking page. Then we have to have the actual call, then have the scoping, the contract sent out, invoice paid, and then.
So I would tell you, have the pixel every one of those steps. So like the Calendly, send it to a custom Calendly thank you page.
Yeah, where
have
it's
a
embedded.
pixel there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Make it a custom conversion event, like book call, and then if you have another one that's like,
thanks for. Yeah, like the thank you for booking, but hey, it's a thank you for booking page. So excited for that, blah, 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 blah. Hey, here's some more questions we want to get answers from you so we can show up to the call more prepared. They fill all that out, and then it's like kind of that part of the journey. So really, you're saying put a Facebook pixel
every step
of the way, even for professional service firms and such.
Absolutely, because the power of the pixel is that what you'll be able to do until you get to a certain amount of people that do purchase, let's say it's that 100 people or whatever, you can do lookalikes from there. And even like the way the algorithm works, as it's getting people through the funnel, it'll get smarter. So let's say your audience is 3,000 or 3 million people that you're sending to lead gen. It'll look at those and then say, okay, at the back end, I'm getting these like purchases or the signing contract. Hey, who in these 3 million actually looks similar to them? And it starts analyzing it and sending you more relevant people in.
Awesome. I would say, and maybe you can second this for me, also on each of those pages, we're going to have Google Analytics, and we also want to have events firing. So then we have, because there is sometimes a disparity between the two. Nothing is perfect, right? Totally. Everybody listening, you're never going to have 100%, unfortunately, but we can get as close as possible. But if you have Facebook pixels and the Google Analytics tracking and firing its own the events or triggers, then you can see how that funnel is performing and then decide which one's going to be your source of truth. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm just always in Facebook. That's what's like analytics it always goes hand in hand with Facebook pixel.
Right. Hand in hand. So everybody listening, you want to have those doubling up. It's a little bit of extra work, but then you can do a gap analysis between the two, because sometimes Facebook will over-attribute or under-attribute. And so then we need to look at, then we can bring in the CRM as a third source and say, oh, well, this person actually did pay the invoice and whatever, or buy the thing. It's a legit thing. And Facebook says 0, Google Analytics says 1, you're going to have that variation, but at least you kind of know a little bit more about the story instead of like just having one tracking source.
I'll tell you that there's actually, obviously with mobile, there is an issue that I believe AdWords even has this. I know Facebook does, where they're not always able to track like a unique purchase. So if somebody goes on a page and they reload it, they might fire that as multiple.
Right.
Facebook they do have a column in your reporting called unique purchase, which is only looking at it at unique times. So essentially what can happen when you're talking about data, when you get your data wrong, is if somebody does go on it maybe 2 times, they reload it. But if you look at the unique one, that gives you a more accurate, and that tends to be like the way more accurate one that we look at typically when we're looking overall at, results.
And I think that's just a really internal, that's a decision on what is going to be our source of truth, right? As opposed to just the one where people could refresh, let's go with the unique. And it's just deciding as an internal organization, this is what we're going to go off of.
Exactly. I mean, I'll tell you, I had a client that our numbers got messed up because somebody went on a thank you page and they reloaded it 10 times. So we thought they were, making money, and we find out later, this is how I found out about it. We thought they were making money, and we're obviously at the end of the month, we're going through everything. We're like, yeah, we didn't. We look back, it's like, wow, yes, somebody went on this at 11 o'clock at night, they bought it, and then reloaded it 10 times.
Yeah. That reminds me, do you remember the commercial of the Adobe Analytics commercial where there's a guy at the headquarters of Britannica Encyclopedia place, of the old encyclopedia? He's like, oh my God, we're back in business. He saw all these orders coming through, and he's like, picks up the phone, calls China, we're back in business, let's get going. And they start printing books and shipping, and all this stuff happens. And all of these movements on their company are happening. And on the other side, it's a little baby clicking the mouse several times. And it ends the commercial like, Adobe Analytics, who's watching over your data, or who's tracking your stuff. It's like that stuff, kind of stuff can happen. It can really skew the data. So if you don't have all these different data points and take the time to review that, you can make bad decisions.
Absolutely.
I love that commercial. It's a fun one to go back. I think we're putting it up on our blog here pretty soon. So I'll have Spencer link it to this one.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I wanted to go back to when you were saying the first part of owning your data when it comes to ad data. What else do you specifically mean by owning your data? When the data is in Facebook and you want to make sure it's accurate, what do you mean by owning your data there?
I think it really means that you're actually the owner of that pixel.
Okay.
Because
in your account.
Yeah. Right? So your account.
So the agency doesn't own the account. You have your account.
Correct. Yeah. So like if you have an agency that's saying that they're going to run it out of their own ad account, ask questions. Why are they doing it?
Right.
Maybe there's a valid reason. Like there is some programmatic programs out there that they can only run out of certain ad accounts, like the companies. But even then, it's like you want to ask questions and maybe look kind of elsewhere, because a lot of the programmatic stuff you can do already in the ad account on your own, and you don't need that service to do it for you, type of thing.
That's a great point. That's why I wanted to come back to that, because owning your data means if it's on a platform like that, you need to own the account. Exactly. And many, many times companies can get burned because it can be turned off. Just like we said, platforms can turn you off and you can do nothing about it. If you don't own that account at the admin level, you can completely get screwed out of a lot of your valuable data. So everybody listen, own your account, own your data.
Absolutely.
So in wrapping up, I think we can have a lot more conversations around this. I'm curious, what is one of your, favorite KPIs or metrics in your life or business that you love to follow and has made the most difference in your life or business?
It's probably the return on ad spend feature within Facebook. Because really, what anybody's doing any advertising is they want to make money. And that is like the gold standard, if you will, saying, hey, I spent X and I got 10X back, or whatever it is. It's just a validation. And that's something that, especially like the e-commerce clients, we look at that on a daily basis, making sure that, hey, we're meeting our internal goals and then what the client goals are. So if we're not, we're going to try a different strategy, because really like the name of the game with it is you got to keep testing until you find something that really matches together and then allows you to kind of scale it up. But ROAS has been definitely one I think about all the time, especially for the right clients, because that's where the money is. And
that's where the money is. Right. And then on top of that, you got ROAS, but then you've got real, like bringing in COGS. It's after that, what are you actually profiting?
Oh, exactly.
Right. As a second level. So ROAS is a very basic rudimentary one. That's like one of the most important here when ad spend. But then on top of that, at next level is what is it actually costing you? And are you profiting based on the revenue?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's typically that's not one we typically get into, because that's something more of like on the business side, especially if they have refunds. It's like, we can only control that front end, that initial purchase. We can't really control like the returns type of thing.
Right. That's why I got to show you some of the stuff we've done. So we can show, because we can tell that story, but we can show that in another episode. Well, hey, anything else you want to talk about, or any other advice around data, not just owning it, but around data that you'd love to give?
I mean, pretty much, I mean, everything we talked about, I mean, definitely have more than one channel that's doing the data collection. So don't solely say, hey, Facebook's saying I got 5 sales. I really got 5 sales. Actually check and dig into it. Because especially with, Shopify stores, Facebook, again, is just notorious for over saying you get way more purchases than you really got. So
Yeah.
really go back, double check it, spend the time in the data, because like data can definitely be overwhelming. But it's your friend. At the end of the day, that's what's going to make your business a success or not.
Well said. I want to emphasize that. You said data is your friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not something to fear. That is part of our message, part of why we're doing this conversation. Data is your friend, but you've got to, you said, spend the time to review it. And folks, that means just like literally in your calendar, there should be a time block. It doesn't have to be daily, but somebody on your team, whether you're the business owner, C-suite, somebody who's in charge of, the spending or the marketing, whatnot, at least I suggest once a week, maybe on Fridays or Wednesdays, have an hour blocked off where the cell phone's off, email shut down, you're in your dashboard or you're in your spreadsheet. Maybe it's a little chaotic, but you're somewhere where you can review the data. Or if you just need to be in the multiple platforms and you're still pulling stuff manually, you've got to take the time to do it. If you don't, it's like it's such a naive thing to just kind of let it go and then do it once a month or once a quarter. At least you're doing that. But like if you start doing it on a weekly basis and spending the time with your data to grow that relationship, then you're going to develop that data-driven culture, and you're going to see the patterns or anomalies that are going to help you pivot the business much faster. So I'm so glad you said that. That's a great little quote, is like, data is your friend.
I mean, it definitely is. I mean, it can be overwhelming thinking about it, especially you got multiple dashboards, multiple spreadsheets. It's like, and I'll tell you, like, math is not my strong suit, like growing up. But
mine either. I was great at English class.
Yeah.
Math, I was not the best at. Meaghan, my counterpart, she wanted to be a calculus teacher. But you and I'm actually glad you said that. So since math was not your background, how did you get data driven, or how did you get to be friends with data?
I think it's just seeing, like, I really got more into it by seeing, hey, you spend this and you get this back type of thing. And then just digging into it more and realizing, hey, to run a successful business, you have to know your data. You got to know what it's cost you for X, how much you're getting back, where you got to spend money where, knowing all that and having a really strong understanding of it, helps you tremendously. Like, I use calculators all the time.
Yeah.
Spreadsheets. So.
Yeah, it's all the technologies there for us. It's right. We're looking at the right numbers and knowing your numbers. And on that note, Kevin, I appreciate you spending time with me on the Data Rich Show, just having a conversation around data. I think you've got some really awesome, valid points. And my marketing director, Spencer, will go ahead and put all this together in a really cool way and put some notes together for the blog. So thank you again. If you'd like to come on again, I'd love to have some more conversations with you.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you want me on again, let me know. I'm good. I can chat whenever.
If anybody wants to get a hold of you, what's your website? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Probably best way is if you go to my full name. So Kevin, Kevin, and then BRKAL.com. Awesome. That's the best way. Fill out the form and then we can chat.
Wonderful. And we'll put that in the show notes too. Thanks so much, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Sounds good. Great meeting. Bye.
So one of the questions was around data ownership. I said, okay, guys, I want to build out a community. And I have some my marketing friends saying, go where the market is. Build a community, a group on Facebook. And I know that they are like really gearing towards that algorithm and pushing people like, hey, get us in the group. But from my own experience and owning your data, which we preach, I want to live what we preach. We don't own our data on Facebook. Somebody could do something really stupid on, from curse words or whatever, but to posting something that's, I don't know, a privacy issue with data, and they shut down our thing after we have 100,000 people in it, and I can't do jack. Yes. So around data ownership, I'm a little bit nervous of starting a Facebook group. So that's a predicament, and that can kind of kick off our data ownership discussion. So what do you think about that?
I mean, I see the value in obviously not doing it on Facebook, because you run the risk of them one day waking up and saying, bye. I think they just did that for like animal sales, like I don't know, like horses, like are sold primarily like through groups on there. And they just, I believe, recently like changed something so they couldn't do it anymore.
Right. Okay. Let's just say for whatever reason they want to shut it down. You nothing you can do.
You're at
And
the
even if
whim
you
of
have a best
somebody.
friend
Yeah, you're at the whim of somebody saying, "I don't want it anymore."
yeah.
It's not aligned to it.
Again, another example, Megan and I have an Airbnb business on the side.
Oh, nice.
And we built out we were one of the top listings in Austin area. We were in the luxury program called like Airbnb Plus. And we had hosted over 2,000 people.
Wow.
And we were
Congratulations.
really good. Thank you. This is a great business. And then one day, so a guest came in, and we had recently installed a camera outside at the garage and inside, but looking at the front door, just to, when we're away on our long trips, we just want to make sure we are checking in. This is okay in the bylaws of Airbnb. You just have to state it. Well, we did that and they approved it, but there was somebody who had booked with us months ago before we installed the cameras. And little did we know, when they came in, they reported us like, oh, they got cameras in the house. That's not fair, blah, blah. And then they shut down our account. Now we were gone. They did call us. We were in Europe, but like we were asleep. By the time we woke up, we hadn't been able to respond, and they like shut it down. So we're like, hey, we are totally legit. Here's the proof of the emails. Here's everything. They're basically like, sorry. $90,000 a year business shut down. All the reviews, all that stuff. So again, the point is owning your data.
It's important.